It is Saturday, the 20th of December, 2025, and I'm come down with something. I have not been feeling well for the last 2 days, and so I'm not going to show my screen just because I look miserable right now, but I'm going to still try to get these videos out because, again, the holidays are coming, and I might not be online as much in the next week. So anyways, this is Canadian news that I just wanted to get through first. So breaking: Waleed Khan, a 26-year-old Toronto resident, has been arrested on allegations that he allowed ISIS to use his property to facilitate terrorist activities and operated a series of pro-ISIS social media accounts. And so that's from yesterday. Okay, so active shooter in Welland, Ontario has schools and area locked down after officer shot. This is Canada. This is Ontario, in the province that I'm currently living in. I'm not from here, but I've lived here for a series of years because of my work contracts and being as close to my family in Quebec as I can be without actually being in the province. And I'm telling you, with Doug Ford, like, he is such a slime bag criminal, and allowed all of this stuff to happen and giving contracts and money to his friends and to his family instead of giving it to Canadians. Just like the job losses, the cost of living, so much under Doug Ford. And I will say that since COVID, and I shared the emails, I gave Doug Ford multiple medical, scientific, and government data sets in order to try to end the mandates and the lockdowns and the forced inoculations. I gave him the older scientific studies that were done with the mRNA therapeutics, where there were people, especially young men, young boys, who were suffering from myocarditis and pericarditis at elevated rates. I gave those studies, even saying that within a 5-year period, between a 2 to 5 year period after inoculation of those mRNA therapeutics, very similar to what we were injected with during COVID, it caused a lot of adverse issues, especially with the heart. And these are things that people tried to bury, even in what they call the original trials that Pat King, I think, was part of. There was no placebo group. There was no control group. And again, like, there's still people that are not in jail yet for this. People wanting to vaccinate 100% of the population, like even in the Canadian Armed Forces with Wayne Eyre pushing that Can4Gen, where he wanted 100% of people to be vaccinated. First of all, you need a control group in any society. You cannot force inoculate 100% of a population because you need, I'm going to reiterate, a control group. So in the Canadian Armed Forces before Wayne Eyre, before he pushed those Can4Gens, I think it was over 90% of the Canadian Armed Forces were already vaccinated. It was not required. There was punishment. There were people that were kicked out, suspended, charged, all of these things, lost their pensions, etc., for refusing something that was not a vaccine at all, and not what they said that we would be getting. And still no jail. But anyways, it's all right. I'm all over the place. But yeah, this was interesting. This is from Oz, Dr. Oz.
In the compliance, the white paper outlines this, with the dangerous progressive ideology that treats children like lab mice. And because often in medical school, you're taught to go along to get along, they have not been.
And he said lab mice, not lab rats. I get it. It's a small difference, but I don't know why people are saying lab rats, etc. when he said lab mice.
Willing to rear their heads and bravely say what they know to be right, which is that these procedures are wrong. Individuals who question their sexuality are treated by many medical professionals on the fast track, that's what it's called, approach to care, resulting in drastic interventions that merely increase the distress they're already suffering from. Under politicized medicine, people suffer long-term consequences. Let me go through the 3 major categories. Puberty blockers, reduce bone density, alter brain development, which is a real problem when you're 11, 12, 13 years of age, and disrupt sexual function for the rest of your life, oftentimes. Cross-sex hormones cause irreversible changes, including infertility, loss of sexual function, even cardiovascular issues, as well as long-term endocrine problems. And of course, the surgical interventions where you remove healthy organs, despicable and reprehensible as it is, permanently alter appearances and destroy children's lives. So let's talk a moment right now about the big question. This dangerous fast-track approach in invasive treatment, what it really does is slap a Band-Aid on a much deeper pathology, a much deeper problem, the underlying issue of gender dysphoria. It denies patients the opportunity to be seen for who they really are. doctor can't look them in the eyes and treat them like a child that's confused and lost and needs help. They become.
And you have people, I forget what her name is, but and unfortunately she's a veteran, which like I really do not like saying negative things about veterans because largely they are people of service. They care about people, they care about human life, etc. But I think her name was Bonnie Crombie or whatever her name was. But anyways, I did videos on her. But she wanted to be in government. She ran as an independent, despite the fact that she's a radical leftist, respectfully speaking. And again, she's part of the LGBTQ plus IA alphabet soup community. And I mean that respectfully, but again, there's a bias there. And she has been actively for the last few years trying to push policies in Alberta in order to allow trans kids, children, to be mutilated, to have hormone blockers or hormone treatments, etc. It's absolutely disgusting. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And people like that need to be called out. There is a bias there, an agenda, and an ideology that is sick and twisted, and they don't realize it because they are in an echo chamber, and all the information they're getting is about, oh, we're so amazing, we're heroes for protect trans kids. No, protect children, all children. And there are so many people that are detransitioning now, and they're trying to share their stories about how their lives were ruined by people in the medical system, and trying to get accountability, and people within the LGBTQ plus IA community are completely censoring these people, attacking these people, etc. And so anyways, I'm really glad that people like Dr. Oz are speaking out on this for what it is, because again, after the age of 18, as a libertarian, I don't give a shit what you do. It's up to you, as long as it doesn't impact other people, and as long as you are not going in women's safe spaces, like locker rooms, and taking their scholarships away from them, and bathrooms and sports competitions, all of these things. Stay out of women's sports. Stay out of women's safe spaces. And again, this shouldn't be something that's debatable, but for some reason, it is, and it's such a small percentage of the population that are represented within, especially within the House of Commons, overrepresented. We have woke DEI people, and sorry, my dogs are barking. I got a little distracted. And again, these people need to be fired and forced to resign. They do not hold these positions because of merit, because of their resume, and just like Jenny Carignan, she's the current chief of defense staff. So many men were overlooked that had way better resumes, and they actually held command positions at div level, which she did not ever hold. So our current chief of defense staff is literally the most underqualified, incompetent chief of defense staff Canada has ever had. And I hate saying that because there are women, it's very rare, but women within the combat arms who have done exceptionally well. And it was based on merit, not based on being pushed in because they were a woman and they just wanted to like do an experiment. Absolutely not. And so why did so many people get overlooked for someone, again, that's pushing and has been pushing a woke DEI agenda, not just for the last year or two. No. Jenny Carignan, this general, this cow, has been pushing woke DEI stuff now for over 10 years that I know for a fact, because even when I was still serving, she was part of the Op Honor team umbrella that were going all over Canada, essentially for a witch hunt, and was deeply involved in the show trial that happened during COVID. Again, when there was all those sexual assault allegations and claims that came out, huge hit piece by Mercedes Stevenson, etc. And people's lives were ruined. Some people, I understand, like they being forced to resign because they did have extramarital affairs with staff. But why, after 30 years and people knowing for at least 10 years, 15 years that this was happening with Vance and someone within his staff, why did it take 2021, 2022 when he was finally the chief of defense staff and was someone that was not willing to impose lockdowns and mandates and forced inoculations like was being pressured for him to do? He was not about that. And so why, when Doug Ford and so many other people who have cheated on their wives recently too, again, more recently than General Vance, and again, this was always known, unfortunately, and but anyways, it was a witch hunt. It was timed very well, and a time where we're attacking men that have been of service to Canada for decades, yet we're not holding people like Doug Ford accountable when he cheated on his wife with a staffer during COVID, and maybe even more than that. He's a disgusting human being, and he's part of so many corruption scandals, like just his decal business alone, and making millions of dollars during COVID. And he's the one, his signage was all over grocery stores and hospitals all over Canada. And so, but again, he cheated on his wife. They were together for many years, had many, like had a few children. And so why, I'm going to reiterate, why did that not become a scandal and people forced him to resign for the same thing? I went on all these tangents. I'm going to go back to Dr. Oz. I'm sorry.
An opportunity. They become eventually a victim. as well have been pressured into compliance. The white paper outlines this with the dangerous progressive ideology that treats children like lab mice. And because often in medical school
Okay, he was done.
as well.
It don't give me this bullshit. It don't give me this both sides bullshit. Mr. Director, I want to ask you. The man who tried to kill Republican congressman at the congressional baseball practice, nearly killing House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, left-wing or right-wing violence?
Sir, I believe it was a left-wing ideology.
Okay. Burned down cities during the Summer of Love in the George Floyd riots, left-wing violence or right-wing violence? Left-wing. The Waukesha Christmas Parade massacre, left-wing or right-wing violence? Left-wing. The Lee Zeldin stabbing attempt, left-wing or right-wing? Left-wing. The Covenant school shooting in Nashville, left-wing or right-wing? Left-wing. The Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt on President Trump, left-wing or right-wing? Left-wing. The Trump International West Palm Beach assassination attempt, left-wing. The Abundant Life Christian school shooting, left-wing. The United Care CEO's murder, left-wing. Tesla's burned, keyed, damaged, firebombed, left-wing, left-wing. The murders at the Israeli embassy, left-wing. The ICE facilities firebombed, left-wing. The Minnesota Catholic school shooting, left-wing. The anti-white Charlotte and North Carolina stabbing, left-wing. The attempted Utah News State firebombing, left-wing. And now, of course, the culmination of this vile trend, a left-wing assassination of Charlie Kirk. So don't give me this both sides. If we want to get to unity, let's be honest. Let's be honest.
And I will say also that it's like the radical left, absolutely, but they are also in alliance, like these pro-Palestinian protests, like these organized protests. There are people on the far left that have aligned with radical extremists from other countries, from like and so even at the Brown University, at Brown University, not only was that MIT professor shot, but there was also a Christian woman that was also shot. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Yeah, Ella Cook. Tragic. So tragic. And there's information coming out. I don't know if I'll share it on this video, but the updates regarding Brown University. Sorry, video started playing. Surveillance. There was no surveillance in the building where the attack took place. Allegedly, the guy said Allahu Akbar before he shot up, the school and injured multiple people and killed people. And why do they not want to say that within mainstream media or law enforcement? Why do they not want to say that? Because of a stereotype that might come out of that. You have to give the facts and the truth, okay, people. And again, it's not confirmed yet, but there are multiple sources on social media that are saying that is what witnesses were saying that he had said. And then we see what happened at Bondi Beach and in other areas. This is absolutely horrific. And in Ontario, and people are trying to say that this is just anti-Semitism. It's not. And that's frustrating me as well, because Christians are also getting murdered during these attacks. And so they were saying that, they were targeting Jewish people, like these people that were part of this ISIS cell in Ontario. And that was not the case. They were targeting women first, women on top of that goddamn list. It didn't matter if you were Christian or not religious at all, or a Jew. They were targeting women first, and then they were targeting what they said was Jews. Okay, so we have to look and take both those threats seriously, but we cannot underplay the threat to Christians and to Canadians or Americans or people within Western countries that are now more under attack, and it is unfortunately more religious people. And so for people that want their religion to basically, people that are part of jihad, not compatible with Christian religion either. I'm just going to say that.
It don't give me this.
Cash Patel, the one over.
I've had a couple of conversations with Eric Moutsos, and I gave him some information regarding the Charlie Kirk assassination and my assessment of it. And I don't know if he's looked at some of my stuff or not, but he will consider it, I think. And it would be nice to do maybe some kind of a podcast with him or something. But anyway.
That black book, where are you? It's Friday today. Some of us kind of knew this wasn't going to happen. But I kind of want to know a little bit more about Cash Patel. Did you guys know if you go online right now and see this little Cash Foundation that was set up? I don't think that's a conflict of interest. sending in donations to the head of the FBI. But this organization supposedly started out to try to just help the regular person that was treated wrong by the government. In fact, one of the very first client that he had was Stu Peters. I was just on his show. In fact, Stu had told me that they had spoke every single day for 90 days at one point. And then, of course, when he was getting appointed to that position, the Judiciary Committee, the U.S. Senate, showed that he was somehow tied to Stu Peters, right? Because he was his first client. But then when he was asked about it, so when he was actually asked, hey, do you know Stu Peters? What do you think Kash Patel did? Do you think Kash Patel was honest?
You familiar with the Stu Peters? Does that name ring a bell?
I'm sorry. What is?
Are you familiar with Mr. Stu Peters?
Not off the top of my head.
He made 8 separate appearances on his podcast.
Wow.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Stu. Always love coming on your show.
Kash Patel, thank you so much for making the time to be here with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Stu. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Stu. Appreciate it. See you soon.
I got to go, Kash. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks,
up
Stu.
against a hard break here. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Stu.
Kash Patel, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
I don't think you're fit to be in this position, Kash. Like, I think you probably need to read. Maybe you can be the manager of your girlfriend's country music career. What do you think, Kash?
That was good. I'm only sharing that because I don't know why he lies about such basic things, and that's so obvious that we can fact check. And I do trust Kash more than I trust Pam Bondi. And I think the real reason why Dan Bongino stepped down is because like he was getting like what do you do when you are literally getting stopped and sabotaged at every single level? I do still think that there's a deep state element, obviously, and within the U.S. that are sabotaging any form of like changing the trajectory that we're going on. And I think that I'm just, again, I have no idea. He's going to get back on his podcast at some point and talk about it, and definitely has non-disclosure signed and things that he cannot say. But for people trying to like paint him in a negative light and things like that, he tried. And I will say that like there are people from within the FBI, within the CIA, et cetera, that are intentionally not cooperating with giving proper information, evidence, things like that to these heads, to Dan Bongino and to Kash Patel. And I think Pam Bondi is a big part of, again, like the stop drop, which is she was working for Pfizer in 2021. The connections that she has, it's very suspicious. She was working in Florida as an attorney general, or at least within that department, from 2011 to 2019. And Jeffrey Epstein, she could have easily reopened the investigation into his case because there was new information given. So they're trying to say like, oh, we didn't really hear anything about him. No. From 2011 to 2019, so much more new evidence was provided that she could have absolutely reopened the investigation, and she didn't. And so she can come up with whatever excuse she wants to, but that is a reality.
Kash Patel.
And unfortunately, I think Pam Bondi should have been the one that was fired, but she wasn't. Okay, so this was from Ethos and Eros. And this is an email that Wayne Eyre, when he was chief of defense staff, what he had sent in response to possible conscription within Canada. And it's very small, but I'm just going to try to read this out here. Okay, so actually, wait, I have it on my phone. Just give me a second. And I just want to see what people think about this as soon as I get this up. Okay. This was sent on March 5th, 2023 at 10:43 a.m. And this was Wayne Eyre, and on behalf of, okay, so Wayne Eyre. So yeah, again, his email addresses are still on here. I've had his email addresses for years. I've emailed Wayne Eyre, even at the height of all of this, giving him medical, scientific, and government data, and I got gaslit. So, and I know that's his email address, and so, yeah, and I have the receipts. So I regret not responding sooner, but I'm just returning from visiting Ukraine, where there was so much propaganda and bullshit that were spewed to Canadians even after his, arrival back to Canada. The ghost of Kiev, Snake Island, the Polish farmers dying. That was Ukrainian air defense. That was not Russia. Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2. That was not Russia. They all were saying, oh, it was Russia. Wayne Eyre when those Polish farmers got murdered by Ukrainian air defense, with immediately he was literally talking about declaring Article 5 to get Canada involved in a NATO world war. And I commented on that on LinkedIn, and that literally got my LinkedIn account deleted. And so much more I can say about this, but so any decision regarding conscription policy would be one taken by our government and not the Canadian Armed Forces. We in Canada, thankfully, have not needed conscription since the Second World War. Some countries that retain conscription and have more advanced societal norms draft both men and women. Yeah, he's talking about places like Israel. If we had to return to conscription in Canada due to the increasingly dangerous, what he's calling global security situation, so even that, again, like this guy isn't read in on the reality of the world, respectfully speaking, I believe both men and women should be eligible to serve their country. So he says, I hope this helps. Good luck with your studies. And yeah. So they've redacted the guy's name. So hello, Mr. Air. My name is blank. We were having a discussion about conscription for the military in Canada, and the topic of women in the military came up. So anyway, so my comment to that was I was in the infantry for 15 years and then incorporated into the security industry, and I'm a 100% against forcing women to be conscripted or drafted for service right now. We need more women having families, not dying in a proxy war for billionaire grifters. That was my comment back. And so I can't even believe we're at this level. And he's supporting women to be conscripted. And look at the backlash with Ukraine when they started with that. It's absolutely horrendous, and people are dying there like cannon fodder in other places of the world, and it's over lies. And people within NATO were even sharing information from social media influencers in Ukraine that are paid for the government to push propaganda and psychological operations on their own people to maintain morale for the war and all that stuff, and they were falling for it. And that's just where we're at. Okay, it's got some more things to share. And again, I'm really not feeling well, so I'm not going to go on screen. Oh, anyway. More news coming out. Scientists who advised government during COVID did not reveal they had received more than 200 million euros in grants from one of the world's biggest pharma investors, report says. So this is from Mike Fairclough. The massive COVID scam continues to unravel. Scientific advisors to the government during the COVID pandemic failed to reveal they received over 200 million euros in grants from one of the world's biggest pharmaceutical investors, a report reveals. I was talking about this. Even in Canada, we had people that were pediatricians, doctors, etc., that were given money, and then they were pushing pharmaceutical stuff, COVID pharmaceuticals to children after getting a lot of money. So 26 members of the influential Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, SAGE, which helped shape lockdown rules, did not register the research funding from the Wellcome Trust in an apparent conflict of interest. Among others who it is claimed failed to register research funding is Professor Susan Michie, who had claimed restrictions such as social distancing and face masks should stay forever to reduce long-term pressure on the NHS. Vaccine expert Professor Gavin Screeton received more than 26 million euros in 9 Wellcome grants, according to its records, including one directly related to COVID-19, but these grants do not appear on the SAGE register. These people, when are they going to get fucking jail? Anyway, Neil Ferguson, one of the biggest advocates for vaccines, and whose advice to Prime Minister Boris Johnson led to the UK lockdown in March 2020, and who famously resigned as government advisor 2 months later after it emerged he broke rules to meet his married lover. My God. A fortnight after this first lockdown, the Wellcome Trust says drugs, vaccine, and rapid diagnostics were the only exit strategy from the pandemic. It's from the Mail, which it was not. And there's even reports that are saying because people were slamming ivermectin, calling it a horse dewormer, etc., despite the fact that it has won awards. And last I checked, over 5 billion people had been treated with ivermectin. And then during studies, 40 people that had COVID, when they were treated with ivermectin in this study, and this again, I'll share this again, 38 out of 40 people survived, treated with ivermectin. For the people that were not treated, 38 out of 40 died. Like I'm not even kidding. Like the extreme cases. Okay, so there's something else I wanted to share. So this is regarding Brown's University. Brown, I keep on saying Brown's. So, Brown University student Alex Shee previously eviscerated the school's administrators for having a $46 million deficit, despite surging costs for students. They pay $90,000 plus per year. So, Alex Shee, what about the kids who weren't born on third base? Brown is on track to run a $46 million deficit this year. Where's all that money going? I'll tell you where it's going. It's going to an empire of administrative bloat and bureaucracy, and that's a fact. Brown employs 3,805 full-time non-instructional staff for just 7,229 undergrads. That's one administrator for every 2 students. This isn't education. This is bloat paid for on the backs of students and families who are mortgaging their futures for a shot at a better life. And they're also getting a lot of misinformation and indoctrination into these schools also while they're at it. And so there is a lot of administrative bloat. And so the person that was head of the school, again with the security cameras that were not in that building or in the places that they should have been, especially the front entrance where they could have at least identified this guy. Allegedly, again, these are rumors, but not corroborated yet. But there is a lot of substantial evidence to suggest that the reason why they didn't have surveillance up is because they didn't want the government to see or be able to access those security videos to look for people that were there, again, illegally, like illegal immigrants that are attending the school, etc. And that should be jail time.
My name's Alex Shea, and I'm a rising junior at Brown University, one of the most exclusive institutions in the world. But I'm not here to glorify the Ivy League. I'm here to warn you that the promise of American higher education, of opportunity through meritocracy, is under attack. I'm a legacy student at Brown. I went to a prep school that feeds to the Ivy League. My parents are doctors who can afford the $93,000 a year sticker price. In other words, I'm exactly who the Ivy League was built for. But what about the kids who weren't born on third base? Statistically speaking, for a smart kid from a poor family, an Ivy League degree can power their ascent to the upper income brackets better than anything else. That's the American dream. But today, that dream is now a luxury good. According to the New York Times, at Brown, the median student's family makes over $200,000 a year. Half the student body comes from the top 5% of earners. And research by Brown's own professor, John Friedman, shows that even equally qualified low-income students are vastly underrepresented. At this very moment, the American people are tightening their belts, and Brown is raising tuition to beyond $90,000 a year. And even while charging students the price of a luxury car, Brown is on track to run a $46 million deficit this year. Where's all the money going? I'll tell you where it's going. It's going into an empire of administrative bloat and bureaucracy. Brown employs 3,805 full-time non-instructional staff for just 7,229 undergrads. That's one administrator for every 2 students. This isn't education. This is bloat, paid for on the backs of students and families who are mortgaging their futures for a shot at a better life. Meanwhile, Grace Calhoun, Brown's athletic director, earns over $1 million. A household assistant on payroll tends to University President Christina Paxson. And when budget cuts are made, these expenses stay while the student experience deteriorates. My dorm floods when it rains, and the burger patties in our dining hall have been replaced by an unappetizing beef mushroom blend. The idea that Brown's administration can be streamlined isn't conjecture. We didn't used to have these many administrators. Across the nation, the number of university administrators has risen by 162% in recent decades. And it's no coincidence that correspondingly, the cost of education has risen 181% in inflation-adjusted dollars since the 90s. Across the pond, a world-class education at Oxford or Cambridge can cost about half as much as an Ivy League degree, in part due to a much lower administrative burden. The status quo has a real human cost. I recently learned of a brilliant young man from Pensacola, Florida, who got into Brown but was forced to walk away because the financial aid wasn't enough. Brown says it meets 100% of demonstrated need, but Brown gets to decide what that need is. Middle-class students in particular suffer from these policies, earning too much to qualify for generous scholarships, but not enough to go to Brown without straddling themselves with significant amounts of debt. And let's not forget that Brown is one of several Ivy League schools that settled a federal antitrust lawsuit last year for allegedly colluding to suppress financial aid offers. I'm a reporter for the Brown Spectator, and to document this problem, I created a website called Bloat at Brown that used AI to assess whether each administrative role was actually necessary. I sent each administrative employee a Doge-style email to ask them, "What do you do all day?" Instead of answering, Brown's response was retaliation. My social security number was leaked. Our website was hacked. and Associate Dean Kirsten Wolf launched a disciplinary investigation into a litany of baseless charges, such as emotional harm. Well, they couldn't get me. They charged every single board member of the Brown Spectator, an unprecedented attack on student journalism. But we refused to back down, and we won our hearings. There was no misconduct, only exposure, and that's what Brown feared the most. This committee has a responsibility, not just to investigate Ivy League antitrust violations, but to reclaim the American dream from those who have twisted it into a racket. I call on you today to subpoena Brown's president, Christina Paxson, and ask her why Brown costs $93,000 a year. The American dream isn't just for the legacies, the coastal elites, or the children of privilege. It belongs to the kid in rural Kansas with a 4.0 GPA, the first-gen student working a night shift, and the families who did everything right and still got priced out. They deserve a seat at the table. They deserve a shot at making it big. Their American dreams matter too. I thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I welcome your questions. My name is Alex.
Okay, so there's more here, but I just wanted to get to the main points for today because I'm really not feeling well today. Yeah, so what if we find out that there was no footage other than private Ring cameras because Brown University and the Providence PD disable all the local and campus CCTV cameras to hamper ICE enforcement? Radical leftists. And so definitely more people need to look into that.
Is the mysterious campus safety chief.
And that is typical for that academic space.
So that right there is the mysterious campus safety chief, Rodney Chapman. Funny, we haven't really heard from him. Where's he been? Well, we just discovered the Brown University police chief isn't really a big fan of policing. He once said this: communities don't want policing done to them. How this guy came to Brown is a crazy story. He was the head of campus security at the University of Utah. And right after he was hired there, he was immediately suspended because he didn't have the proper credentials. Utah then told him, we're going to fire you or you're going to have to resign. What's it going to be? So Rodney resigned and Brown said, we'll take you. And right before this shooting, Brown's police union issued a vote of no confidence in Chief Rodney. The chief's own men accused Rodney of endangering officers and creating a toxic workplace culture. Rodney should know the campus better than anyone, but all week he's been hiding under his desk. He's obviously completely unqualified. Brown's the most liberal Ivy League school, and they take DEI more seriously than safety. The school's been under intense pressure from the Palestinian students. The president, who was a no-show at today's presser, has been heckled for years by Muslim underclassmen. She always bends the knee, but they heckle her anyway. Over the summer, radical left human rights groups demanded Brown disable their security cameras so Palestinian activists could raise hell under the radar. Did they cave? We asked. No response. It's not just Brown. The whole city is a DEI mess. You know who else was at the press conference? The Providence City Council Chief of Staff is a genderless bisexual who was arrested for protesting at Trump Tower this year. Meanwhile, the police chief could be compromised. Turns out the chief's nephew was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison for running one of the largest fentanyl rings in Rhode Island.
Wow.
And Mayor Smiley promoted him to chief knowing his family was trafficking. Why would Smiley do that? Well, because Smiley and the chief speak the same language.
And that is typical for that academic space.
Yeah. January 6th will go down in history as the day the government staged a riot to cover up the fact that they certified a fraudulent election. I really like that. Okay, so this is regarding Helen Gruce because she did, the sentencing has started. This was yesterday that this was posted. Robert Krychek, he's part of Rebel News.
Bruce,
I don't really, there's a few people in Rebel News that I don't trust. that are pushing propaganda, but there are a few people within Rebel News that are incredible, incredible reporters, and Alex Lavoie, and especially a few of them coming out of the West Coast. I forget their names now, but anyways, and Robert Karczyk as well, and he's been covering the Helen Gruss trial since the very beginning. I was there at the first court hearing that came in. I don't know, I think it was 2022, but the summer, and he was there, and I gave him my business card, and we have communicated, but it's been like over a year now, just because. Honestly, because of Ezra Levant. He does obviously have a lot of admiration for Ezra Levant. And then when I did kind of like try to clap back a little bit with some things that he's shared, propaganda that he's pushing regarding Israel and Zionist movements, and that didn't really land. So maybe I'll re-engage because, yeah. But anyway, this is very important. The Helen Gruss trial, people like Mario for the North has been reporting on it, which is incredible. Unfortunately, it's been a few years that she's been doing this like pretty much all alone. But this case is the most important case in Canadian history for law enforcement. The most important. It's the longest, most expensive trial. And again, if this goes through and she's punished, this is literally going to limit what law enforcement will do in the future to question the narrative if it goes against even what they're seeing on the ground. And we can't have that. We can't have law enforcement afraid to tell the truth or be whistleblowers or do their jobs. More importantly, do their jobs if they know that they're going to suffer the same consequences that people like Helen Gruss did and multiple other people, what they experienced as well. That I can't name their names, unfortunately, because they're still employed and they're still in positions that are very important. And but people that were suspended and charged, etc., during COVID and the lockdowns, etc., lives destroyed, divorces, etc., and suicides. By the way.
Now, the last thing I'll say is that Bathsheba Vandenberg is beginning or has done the first part of her argumentation as well on behalf of her client, Helen Gruss. And she's again sort of emphasizing that she has OPS officers with pedigrees professionally that have worked in the OPS that have some unique insight into the conduct of Helen Gruss and how it might affect the reputation of the OPS going forward in the event that she is punished. Again, she's already been found guilty. The last thing I'll say is this. This is an argument that Bathsheba Vandenberg advanced, which
There will be an appeal, I think, because, yeah, she was found guilty of dishonorable conduct, which is absolutely disgusting, couldn't be further from the friggin' truth. But anyways.
Totally sympathetic to. In fact, I think it can be demonstrably proved as of now. If Helen Gruss is punished for what she did, the message is clear. She used the word chilling. There'll be a chilling effect on existing police officers, not just in Ottawa, but across the with respect to their willingness to take enterprise to investigate any sort of potential crime that would be deemed unpopular in the minds of the state or the popular dogma. Now, that's not her words. She's relaying that from police officers who have written affidavits in support of Helen Gruss, but that's what she's saying is at stake.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking this time to explain that.
Sure.
So well. Thank you.
Yeah, he's great. Yep. Okay, so just in case I misstated this before, I just want to correct the record because I got it from him.
It is
Brett Weinstein from Dark Horse Podcast.
Have you read Pierre Corey's book, The War on Ivermectin?
No.
Okay. There's something reported in this book that it really stops you in your tracks. It is an accidental natural experiment. Okay, so a natural experiment is something in science where maybe you happen on an archipelago in which you have a bunch of different islands that have different conditions, and you can go to each island and measure the, whatever parameter it is, because nature has given you an experiment that you can analyze. You don't have to build islands, right? In this case, what Pierre reports is that there were 80 court cases in which a family sued a hospital that was refusing to give ivermectin to a desperately sick family member, and they wanted the courts to intervene and force the hospitals to administer ivermectin. 80 cases. In 40 of those cases, the courts granted the family's request and ivermectin was administered. In 40 cases, they refused to intervene and no ivermectin was given. In 38 of the cases where ivermectin was given, the patient survived, and 2, the patient died anyway. In 38 of the cases where no ivermectin was given, the patient died, and in 2, the patient survived.
God, that's what I was right
Okay.
in the reporting.
Now,
It's mind blowing.
I find this this is
I've been saying this for years.
incredibly. I cannot vouch for the data itself. Because it's not published in a scientific paper, I can't go look at the methods. I can't go find the court cases. But assuming that the data is accurately reported, and I know Pierre well, he didn't make it up. So, assuming that the data is accurate, the level of statistical significance on that accidental study is absolutely astronomical, right? I had Heather run a chi-squared calculation, and the p-value, I checked it also with 2 different AIs. The p-value comes out to be 5.03 times 10 to the negative 15, right? So what that means is that the chances of a result that strong, if ivermectin does not work, are something like the chances of you guessing a random 15-digit number on the first try.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
So
it's
impossible.
through the roof, right? This is a level of statistical significance we essentially never see.
And CNN turned it into a veterinary medicine.
They should be in jail.
It turned you green.
Hilarious.
Right. So my point here is a couple-fold. One, the ivermectin story and the repurposed drug story more generally is a very important puzzle piece, because if repurposed drugs had been allowed to be used,
Bingo.
if doctors had been allowed to go through the normal process of medicine that doctors go through, where they look at a patient who's ill, they see what their symptoms are, they try to figure out what might work for them, they talk to other doctors, they pool their information. If that process had been allowed to unfold, COVID is an entirely manageable disease in all but the most compromised people.
Yep.
Right? There was no important pandemic.
No, there was not. Man, people
Have you read Pierre Corey?
And a point to that as well, the reason why this inoculation, which was not a vaccine, was even approved under, authorized under emergency use, is because apparently there was no other treatments available, and there were. So it wasn't just ivermectin, which beyond all measures would have been the most effective treatment for anyone during COVID. Was denied, and people were calling it a horse dewormer, all this bullshit, all this propaganda regarding ivermectin, and look what's coming out now. And so people should be a little bit more upset about this than they are, and people do deserve jail for this. This is from Viva Fry. I have read through Pfizer's defense to answer for Sean's lawsuit for damages. Dan is suing Pfizer for damages resulting from the death of his son, Sean, a little over 30 days after receiving the Pfizer vaccine, the Pfizer shot. I don't like to call it a vaccine. So this is from Viva again. I cannot deny my own bias. I believe Pfizer executives in Alberta and Albert Bourla, a veterinarian, by the way, in particular belong in jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $50 billion. Jail. That said, I do notice a couple of rather incriminating admissions in this defense. The first is that Pfizer now admits to having received a signal of myocarditis and pericarditis, particularly in young men as early as June 2021. And by the way, guess who shared those studies on the myocarditis and pericarditis in young men since 2021? Myself. Personally emailed, and I've shared the receipts on other videos since for years now. I sent those scientific studies to Doug Ford, to Wayne Eyre, to every single level member of cabinet, to tip lines, to the media, you name it. And because I had family, you know what? Anyway, just absolutely disgusting what they did during this. And they had the science. The implication is that no such signals were discovered during the trials, although based on my knowledge of the trials, I suspect any such signals were buried, as Maddie DeGarry's injuries during the trials were buried, so Pfizer could get approved. That's true. Not even just that case. And there's people that were part of the original trials that have said the same thing. And again, talks about the control groups, etc. The fraudulent, totally corrupt Pfizer trials is the basis of Ian Brooke Jackson's Quitam fraud lawsuit against Pfizer, which lawsuit Biden's corrupt regime dismissed, and which corrupt dismissal is currently still being pursued by AG Pam Bondi, a woman who served as counsel for Pfizer in 2021. So they knew the shot was causing myocarditis and pericarditis, particularly in young men, and they think their defense is that they updated the warning labels on the product, and that myocarditis and pericarditis was worse from COVID infection in any event. That's a lie, by the way. I'm going to get to that. Infection which the shot did not prevent in any event. Total and utter horse crap, but at least they have now formally admitted in legal proceedings that they were aware of these signals as of at least June 2021 and did not act on them. Pfizer denies causality, which explains why the corrupt terrorist government of Canada has yet to educate on Sean's VISP vaccine injury support program, because the corrupt pieces of human filth at the government have not yet acknowledged Sean's death was vaccine related. They have not acknowledged a lot of deaths and a lot of heart injuries were vaccine related. And this is not, I'm going to share anecdotal data as well that were not reported, that people tried to have this reported and looked into, and they were literally denied any form of service and help, even in the hospital. So even my stepbrother, he did not want to get the shot, but he was forced with work. His boss eventually told him, like, basically, don't even bother to show up for work if you're not vaccinated. So he did, and within a week or two of getting his second shot, never sick before, anything like that. Again, he's in his 40s. He's never been sick before, and he had called me up. Like, he was really nervous, and he couldn't breathe. He was having chest problems and stuff like that, and it was really bad. And it was for a few days like that. He was like completely bedridden, and thought he was dying. And I'm like, well, you got to go to the friggin' hospital. And I don't want to go to the hospital. I'm like, you have to go to the friggin' hospital. And so he did end up going in Montreal, and he had the passport, like the vaccine passport barcode or whatever, on his friggin' phone. And I guess it wasn't working or whatever. They denied him entrance into the goddamn hospital. So he didn't even get seen. He was literally at the entrance and trying to get in. And so he didn't even get seen. I have another friend who was in the special forces after his second shot within, again, a week or 2 weeks. And he finally admits it now that he thinks it was a vaccine injury, but at the time he did not. He had a heart attack. A guy in the special forces, super elite, and it ruined obviously his career. And showed me a picture of him in the hospital, all like full of all these friggin' IVs and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my fucking God. And other cases as well, where even one case of my ex's cousin, his wife was trying for a few years to have children. She really didn't want to have the vaccine because she was nervous about possible complications, because she had tried so long to have this goddamn baby so that her son can have a sibling, especially, and because they wanted another kid as well. And then within days of her having that shot, and she wanted to wait till the very end where it was like, absolutely, you're going to get fired. And she was working in a government position. She still does. But within days, she had a spontaneous abortion miscarriage within days of having the shot. And I could go on with all the anecdotal pieces of evidence that I've seen myself, and that other people have told me, that have messaged me throughout the years. And these were not counted in the stats. When I say that the VAERS were underreported, and I confirm that FDA and the CDC also confirmed that they were very much underreported, we cannot stress that enough. And by the way, myocarditis and pericarditis, you can tell if it's vaccine or inoculation induced or if it's natural, because giant cell myocarditis is vaccine inoculation induced. It's not natural. So you can actually test if it's giant cell myocarditis that you have, ladies and gentlemen, if you test for this, or pericarditis, that's a vaccine injury. That is a vaccine injury. Yeah. So they are all criminals to the core. That's from Viva Frei. The other interesting thing is that Pfizer defend its manufacturing process and the scaling of manufacturing, presumably because it knows what it delivered was not the vaccine that was approved. And by the way, there were these vaccines that were being created in multiple different countries. There was no control group. There was no third-party testing or anything, because when third-party testing was done, that shocked a lot of people. There were vials that had other diseases in them. People were contracting COVID via inoculation. There was even Ebola and heavy metals, etc., in these inoculations. So not at all what they were saying was in them. And so, yeah, jail. Okay, so that might be it for like the main news here. Oh, Chris Barber, he gets to keep his truck, which was such incredible news. And that was such punishment. There was no reason for them to even put that on the table. And for years, like, that's, by the way, like a way for him to make money for his family, his truck. that is his business. And his young son, like he was 7 months old when he first got that truck, and he's been with him on many different occasions. And for the Liberal government to want to like punish this guy and destroy his truck because he proved you guys wrong and it's punishment, like it's absolutely disgusting. Like we have so many unhinged radicals within our government at all levels, unfortunately, like even at the judicial legislative branch. And it's kind of annoying. But things seem to be shifting a little bit. Who knows? Any other big news before I get into this? Okay, so this is from Moose on the Loose. Carney shuffles cabinet, adds official tie to convoy frozen bank accounts. Cool. Let's have more of those people back in cabinet.
System is robust. Acts of foreign interference did occur.
Oh boy, buckle up for this one. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Mark Carney announcing a bunch of new deputy ministers. With that, there are some alarming choices he's made here. We've got a review that has just come up from the NDP, which is hilarious. Got some other stuff here. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, let's start with the NDP review. This is absolutely hilarious. They did this big 20-page review of how things went so wrong with the last election, them losing so many seats.
The federal New Democrats have taken stock of the party's devastating 2025 election loss. The party's review and renewal report came out today, which it says outlines a positive path forward as it rebuilds. So what does this report tell us about what went wrong and what the party needs to do to rebuild?
Hey, Karina, essentially this boils down to the reason why the New Democrats had such a devastating outcome in this year's election wasn't for reasons of the party's making. It was totally because and largely because of external factors. So
that's right, not taking accountability for what they did. We're hitching their wagon to Justin Trudeau. They're just going to blame external factors. What an absolute joke.
It avoids making any blame, citing blame to Jagmeet Singh, the former leader, or senior party officials, but instead...
So we can just leave it there. This is just a complete clown show.
And like I said, cites external factors.
External factors. It wasn't Jagmeet's fault at all for continually voting in support of Justin Trudeau's awful policies that have destroyed Canada. No, it's not that. What Jagmeet Singh did is one of the worst things in Canadian politics. If the government was taken down a year ago, around the middle of December, when Pierre Poilievre used Jagmeet Singh's own words against him in an Opposition Day motion, we would have had an election. Pierre Poilievre would have won. We likely would have had a deal with Donald Trump. Things would be much better. Our economy would be healing right now. Instead, we've got Mr. Banker rolling out his net zero agenda, not getting a deal and not caring about it. I mean, who cares? It came from Mark Carney's own mouth. But nobody worried. Jagmeet Singh got his pension. I mean, they're even saying it here on the CBC.
Yeah, he probably set the party back a decade. Remember, Alexa McDonough brought the party to Atlantic Canada, Jack Layton to Quebec and other regions. And in every election, Jagmeet Singh made the NDP retreat, not because he was promoting some wild idea that Canadians wouldn't want to sign up on, like Medicare, but because he was just not doing much of anything. And those last 2 years where you support the government, but at every turn you say they're terrible, I'll pick a lane here.
Pretty bad when the CBC is roasting the NDP here. It's true, though. Jagmeet Singh just hitched his wagon to Trudeau and just took the party right into the ground. Moving ahead, we got some interesting news here. So we got Rebel News hiring Tamara Leach onto Rebel News, which allows her to get out of her house arrest. She can legally go out and work for Rebel News. This is great news. I like to see this. We've also got Chris Barber here. It found out his truck is not going to be destroyed, so some good news here. In other news, we've got Epstein here, a bunch of these files being released. So anytime there's a black square, these are people who are being redacted because they're under 18 years old. There's thousands of these photos. I tried to go through to find Carney in any of them. Instead, what are we finding? Bill Clinton. A whole lot of Bill Clinton. So he does have a bathing suit on here, but Bill Clinton next to someone redacted. Also, Bill Clinton, Ghislaine here, and someone redacted. There's a ton of Bill Clinton in here. Yeah, you're thinking exactly what I'm thinking. And there's almost no Trump photos in here, just a couple of them. So people are saying that they redacted those. There's also pages and pages that are completely solid black redacted. So it's a little ridiculous. It's not exactly transparent what they did here. I understand redacting the under 18, but the full black page redactions are ridiculous. In other news, we've got Volkswagen cancels the ID buzz for 2026 as dealers warn it might be over. More electric vehicles going bust. Moving ahead, we've got this bombshell news here. Carney unveils shuffle of deputy deputy ministers in key economic and defense departments. At first, you might be thinking, whatever, deputy ministers, but this is pretty big what he did here. So it lists them all out here, but they've actually got them on the government's website. And here are all the people, the new ones. So here are the outgoing people: Stephane Beck, Annette Gibbons, Sandra Hassan, etc. So these are all people going out. The people coming in, though, are all these people. So now I've already laid these out on the chart, which we have here. So I now have them underneath all of the Liberals here. So Liberals and then deputy ministers down here. So we're going to fire through these one by one, and we're going to talk about three of these today. So we've got Frances Bilodeau, Associate Deputy Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology; Shalane Curtis Micheleff, Deputy Minister of Health. We got Chris Forbes, Senior Official at the Privy Council Office; Chris Fox, Deputy Minister of National Defense. Who's that? We got Marie-Josie Hogue, as in Justice Hogue is now the Deputy Minister of Justice and Deputy Attorney General of Canada.
Our electoral system is robust. Acts of foreign interference did occur during the last two federal general elections, but they did not undermine the integrity of our electoral system.
Oh, of course. Everything's A-OK. This is the same Justice Hogue who said there's nothing to see here. No problems with the foreign interference inquiry. Now, if you haven't been following the channel for about a year, I did a big story on her back then. And well, what do we have? I've got it laid out here. So Justice Marie-Josie Hogue practiced law at Heenan Blaikie, was a law firm during the period where Pierre Elliott Trudeau and Jean Chrétien were also associated with the firm. Heenan Blaikie also acted as legal counsel for Justin Trudeau and his connection with the departure from West Point Grey Academy. This is a real thing that happened. All of this. We got Heenan Blaikie, the law firm here. Pierre Elliott Trudeau and Jean Chrétien were both lawyers by training, but they were associated with this law firm as counsel. So non-practicing lawyers. Heenan Blaikie represented Justin Trudeau during his West Point Grey Academy kerfuffle, we'll call it. We've got that here coming from this website called the Niagara Independent. This is an independent news website. As we see the main page here, there's a bunch of people that work here. They have posted this article here, which I've clipped right here. It says, Hogue was a member of the legal team who brokered the deal for Justin Trudeau for his quick exit from West Point Grey Academy, a deal that included an expensive non-disclosure agreement, details of the incident that landed drama teacher Trudeau in hot water have leaked out over the years, but all mention of his time and departure from West Point Grey have been labeled as conspiracy theory and avoided by the government-sponsored legacy media. The Hogue Trudeau backstory is purposely overlooked. Now, if we look at the timeline here, so Justice Hogue was employed by Heenan Blaikie from 1987 to 2014. Pierre Elliott Trudeau was counsel there from 1984 to 2000. Many years of overlap there. Same office. Jean Chrétien was also counsel there. Heenan Blaikie letterhead lists Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Jean Chrétien, and Justice Hogue, which is what we've got down here. Here's the receipts. This is all in French here, but you can see right in the letterhead, we've got Pierre Elliott Trudeau here, Jean Chrétien, and we've got Justice Hogue right down here. So Marie-Josie Hogue, Heenan Blaikie. It's not publicly known whether Justice Hogue worked directly with Pierre Elliott Trudeau or Jean Chrétien, or if they just practiced at the same law firm. But either way, this law firm did represent Justin Trudeau. So it's quite the ties here between all of this. And there's more detail on this on Andrew Haynes' X account, which he's done some excellent work here digging stuff up. This is actually from years ago, 2023. Bringing us back to our list of deputy ministers, this just gets worse. We're just getting started here. So we got Michelle Kova-Sibek, Deputy Minister of Indigenous Services. Let's jump over to the end. We got Bob Wright, Deputy Minister of Labor, Greg Orek-Sack, Deputy Minister of Natural Resources. We've got Alison O'Leary, Deputy Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs and Privy Council Office. John MacArthur, Deputy Secretary to the Cabinet Economic Policy Privy Council Office. Now, we're going to be talking about this guy. You can see here, John MacArthur, Director at the Center of Sustainable Development. So this was his previous job. Senior Fellow, Global Economy and Development. We've got a full write-up here. And I was looking to clip sections of it, and there's just so much information in here that should not be trimmed down. I put the whole thing here. John MacArthur is a senior fellow at the Director of the Center of Sustainable Development. It sounds like the kind of guy Mark Carney would want to bring in. His work focuses on generating practical solutions and cooperative approaches across global economies, technology, the environment, and sustainable innovation. He's a co-founder and co-chair of 17 Rooms Initiative, and an innovative approach to catalyzing ideas and action for sustainable development goals. You think this guy hangs out with Mark Carney? Name one person aside from Mark Carney who uses the word catalyzing. Outside of Brookings, he's a member of the Policy Horizon Canada's Deputy Minister Steering Committee and member of Novada's Sustainable Advisory Board. So let's look at the 17 Rooms initiative. I've got it right here.
Today we're gathering in a meeting called 17 Rooms.
We're meeting here in the Rockefeller Foundation's headquarters in New York.
Oh yeah, the Rockefeller Foundation, of course.
Where we're bringing together about 170 people from around the world who are experts in each of the Sustainable Development Goals. We as a foundation, and particularly through the Bellagio Center, are looking to bring people together.
You can't make this stuff up. Sustainable development, the Rockefellers, it's all nicely wrapped together, isn't it?
They remain, every one of them, they remain crucial for the world.
And the basic idea is to take these 17 different sustainable development goals, connect them to real people and the issues they're working on, and to problem solve what needs to get done in the next 18 months to bend the curve towards success so that we have a better chance to actually achieve those goals.
That's the guy right there. This is a guy Carney's bringing in. This guy created this group that has 17 sustainable development goals. And look at this guy's shirt. You recognize this logo? This is the company. It's not like it's close. This is the company, Sustainable Development Goals for the UN. That's what this program is. You can see here, right on the UN's own website, the 17 goals, as that guy mentioned. This is his company. He is the guy with the colored logo. The Sustainable Development UN circle logo. That's infamous with this. You can't make this stuff up. It's also bizarre. This video we were just looking at is an unlisted video on the Rockefeller Foundation YouTube channel. He's been a senior fellow with the Hong Kong-based Fung Global Institute, taught at Columbia School of International Public Affairs, and served as policy director at Columbia's Earth Institute. This just goes on and on and on. Look at this. He has chaired global agenda councils for the World Economic Forum, and in 2016 was an advisor to the Business and Sustainable Development Commission. He currently serves as a member of the Expert Group of Canada and Future of Development Cooperation, as a member of UNICEF's Expert Advisory Panel on FinTech and Children, and is a participant in Counterpoint Global Tailwinds Sustainability Working and Academic Group. Mark Carney bringing in his dream deputy here. As I mentioned, for the past couple of months, what have I been saying? Mark Carney is bringing in his A-team. I've got the stars here. We got this one. We haven't talked about this guy yet. Justice Hogue, as well as all these other people on his A-team. Mark Carney doesn't want Trudeau Liberals on his team. He wants to get rid of all of them. So we've also got Isabella Mondu. This is Deputy Clerk of the Privy Council and Associate Secretary to the Cabinet. This is a pretty high position close to Carney too, so maybe in his inner circle. And finally, who do we have here? Nick Leswick, Deputy Minister of Finance. Who is this guy? This one's going to make you heave. So you can see Bank of Canada. Nick Leswick was appointed Executive Director Policy effective January 2024. In this capacity, he was responsible for overseeing the bank's economic and financial sector analysis and research. And right now you're like, well, okay, he's another banker that Mark Carney knows. And sure, you could just say, yeah, he's just another banker. Mark Carney bringing his Goldman Sachs buddies, all his banker buddies from RBC and other places. This is so much worse once we start scrolling down here. Right at the top right, Nick Leswick. He's on this document. What is this? Michael, we've just received the latest number of frozen accounts from the banks. The total is now up to 76 accounts frozen with a mix. I'm getting goosebumps reading this. With a mix of corporate and retail accounts for a total of $3.2 million. We expect the next update will be even higher as the CBA will be receiving data from a larger set of entities, medium and smaller size banks. We'll continue to keep you appraised of any updates. Regards, Julian. This guy, Nick Leswick, was one of the people coordinating between the banks during the Freedom Convoy when they were locking down and freezing Canadians' bank accounts. Unbelievable. This is the guy Mark Carney he's bringing in. Looking at the timeline here, right on the government's own website, we've got Nick Leswick here. Department of Finance becomes Associate Deputy Finance Minister effective June 1st, 2021. This guy was an Associate Deputy Minister of Finance, and then he went over to be an Executive Director for Policy in January 2024. Mark Carney bringing him back because he needs one of his right-hand men here, helping coordinating between the banks, locking down freezing Canadians' bank accounts during the Freedom Convoy. Now, ultimately, this all fell on Justin Trudeau's shoulders. It was his decision. It wasn't like this guy was deciding to freeze bank accounts. He's obviously in the loop there, coordinating on freezing bank accounts. And I should note, this is an access to information request piece of information here, which is not publicly available. This came from none other than Rebel News. Sheila Gunn-Reid, I'm assuming, got an access to information request on this to get this information out of the government. Justin Trudeau was the one who decided to lock down the bank accounts. Is ultimately the buck stopped with him. But who do you think was suggesting this idea to Justin Trudeau? We actually have the answer to that coming from this Globe and Mail article back from February 7th, 2022. And who's this article written by? Contributed to the Globe and Mail by none other than Mark Carney. Mark Carney wrote this article. It's time to end the sedition in Ottawa by enforcing the law and following the money. Mark Carney is an Ottawa resident and former governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. This is what Mark Carney has to say about Freedom Convoy Canadians. They are not patriots. This is not about restoring freedom, but beginning anarchy. This isn't getting carried away at a rally. It's not a rush of blood to the head. It's deliberate and calculated. And because of that, they must know that from now on, there will be consequences for their actions. He goes on to say here, those who are still helping to extend this occupation must be identified and punished to the full extent of the law. What do you think he means by that? Don't worry, he says more here. But by now, anyone sending money to the convoy should be in no doubt. You are funding sedition. Foreign funders of an insurrection interfered in our democratic affairs from the start. Canadian authorities should take every step within the law to identify and thoroughly punish them. This is the words of Mark Carney, our current Prime Minister. The involvement of foreign governments and any officials connected to them should be identified, exposed, and addressed. I know from experience that crises don't end by themselves. You can't spin your way out of a failure. You must recognize the scale of the challenge, devise a clear plan, and then implement it methodically and deliberately. Your determination to do so can never be in doubt. Then and only then can order be restored. In this case, that means enforcing the law and following the money. Individuals must be held responsible for their lawlessness, and those who finance their actions must be dissuaded from ever doing so again. Thanks, Mark Carney. Thanks for the article here. We obviously know where your stance is on freezing bank accounts, considering you brought in a guy who helped coordinate this with the banks, Nick Leswick. This is Mark Carney's A-team that he's bringing in. He wants more of his people and he wants less of Trudeau's people. I should note too, this guy's had an RBC logo here. This is Bank of Canada. He's worked with the RBC, but has never worked for the RBC, Bank of Canada. So over time here, I'll research the rest of these people. But I think that's enough for us to chew on for one day. Canada is not in good shape right now. Jumping away from the House of Commons, we'll take a breather here and just calm down with a good old-fashioned jewelry store smash and grab.
Come, baby. Come.
I promise there is one good moment of this video.
Come. Go. Good. I know. Just take a breath. It's okay, Mom.
So it looks like there's at least 4 of these guys. Okay, so we've got 2 of them running away and then 2 more are going to hang out over here. And you're going to see a guy on the left side come in with some sort of tire iron, like some old guy. And he's going to wallop one of these guys so hard that he nearly spooks the soul right out of his body. See this guy over here? Maybe it's a cane. I think this is a solid metal rod, whatever this thing is.
We sprayed him in the face. We sprayed the security guard.
Okay, so this is whatever the guy's holding here, and they're saying they sprayed the security guard probably with mace right in the face. And look at this guy here. He's about to get something he deserves.
Oh my God.
One more time for good measure. Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what that thing is, but you can see his reflex. I'm sure that didn't feel good. This is an easy problem to fix. All you have to do is let these jewelry stores be able to have a pew-pew behind the desk. They start doing that, just pew-pew in the leg, problem solved. Like, this is not rocket science how to fix this.
Generally, with the special operations crowd, I do if I have a guest on from that community, it's a life story, and there's so much truth that comes out of those interviews, and it's almost turned into like a therapy session.
Yeah, that's the confession.
I have somebody coming on who had to, maybe he didn't even have to. I told him I didn't want to have the entire conversation on the phone, and that if he wanted to have it here, then we could have it here. He says he does, but he killed a child.
Mhm.
And it's stuck with him for years. It's haunted him. How do you make that right? How do you make something like that right?
I would say in a situation like that, the devil's in the details, right? So if I was working with someone like that, the first thing I would find out is, well, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Because you need to know the details.
One day I'm in there, they spin up, and I'm like, fuck, of course, the day I decided to get out, and I missed the hostage rescue, So I'm in there, but because of some different circumstances,